Hello, my dear wanderers. It's Thomas. Welcome back to our enchanted realm, where the whispers of ancient trees and the songs of woodland creatures greet you. I'm delighted to have you here, traversing this mystical journey with me. Tonight, our tale unfolds within the shadowed halls of a grand forest castle, where magic weaves through every stone and secrets linger in the cool, fragrant air. Imagine taking your evening stroll through the moonlit forest, the canopy above alive with the rustle of leaves and the occasional hoot of an owl. As you step across the threshold of the castle, the air is thick with the scent of pine and moss, mingling with the delicate perfume of night-blooming flowers. The corridors are dimly lit by flickering torches, casting dancing shadows on the ancient walls, adorned with tapestries of old legends. Here, beneath the lofty arches, and among the twisting vines that have claimed their place within these hallowed halls, the whispers of past inhabitants echo softly. Each corridor, each hidden alcove, tells tales of power and enchantment, of a witch whose wisdom is both feared and revered, and a prince whose fate is entwined with hers. The grand hall, with its stone floor worn smooth by time, houses treasures and artifacts that glimmer under the pale light, hinting at the magical potential they hold. So let the clamor of the outside world drift away and find your coziest seat. Encircled by towering trees and the earthy scent of the forest, join me as we delve into the stories of this mystical castle and the intriguing lives of its inhabitants. As the first stars twinkle in the twilight sky, the grand forest castle of Everwood awaits, ready to reveal its hidden wonders. In the depths of the dense forest at the border of Aelrand, a young witch named Elizabeth was meticulously gathering herbs. Her slender fingers moved deftly among the lush greenery, knowing the properties and uses of each plant by heart. This ancient and mysterious forest was imbued with magical power in every leaf and stem. Elizabeth's family had lived here for generations, in harmony with the forces of nature. She inherited her family's magical talents, able to communicate with plants and animals, sensing their emotions and needs. On this day, sunlight filtered through the thick canopy, casting dappled shadows on the forest floor. The air was filled with the fresh scent of foliage. Elizabeth was gathering some rare herbs by a brook when a faint, pained cry reached her ears. "Please help me." The voice was weak and filled with anguish. Elizabeth followed the sound and found an injured knight lying beside a fallen tree. His armor bore the marks of battle, and his tunic was stained with blood. The knight barely managed to lift his head, his eyes full of pain and desperation. "How did you end up here?" Elizabeth asked softly, quickly assessing his injuries. I was ambushed," the knight replied weakly. "Please help me." Elizabeth gently helped the knight to his feet, careful not to aggravate his wounds. She summoned a makeshift stretcher woven from vines and leaves with her magic, placed the knight on it, and began the journey back to her cottage. Along the way, she continuously used healing spells to alleviate his pain. Elizabeth's home was a secluded cottage deep in the forest, hidden and safe, built of stone and wood, covered in ivy, and surrounded by blooming flowers. Inside, a fire roared in the hearth, filling the air with the scent of herbs. The walls were adorned with bundles of dried herbs and ancient tomes of magic. Back at the cottage, Elizabeth busied herself tending to the knight's wounds with a mixture of herbs and magic. Her hands were gentle and skillful, each movement filled with care and warmth. She took down several bundles of herbs from the shelves, carefully mixing them into a salve to apply to his wounds. Over time, the knight's complexion began to return, and his eyes regained their vitality. Several days later, the knight finally awoke. His gaze swept across the cottage, taking in every detail before settling on Elizabeth's face, filled with gratitude and wonder. "I am Alvin, Prince of Elrond," he introduced himself, his voice brimming with appreciation. "Thank you for saving me." Elizabeth smiled slightly and nodded. She was captivated by Alvin's bravery and kindness, and Alvin, in turn, was struck by her beauty and wisdom. As they spent more time together, they developed a deep affection for each other. Alvin spoke to Elizabeth about the conflicts within the kingdom and the responsibilities he bore, while Elizabeth showed him the secrets of her magic and the wonders of nature. They walked together in the morning mist, listening to the birds sing. Under the moonlight, they sat by the brook, sharing their dreams and future plans. Elizabeth guided Alvin through every corner of the forest, demonstrating her deep connection with the natural world. Alvin marveled at her abilities and wisdom, while Elizabeth was deeply impressed by Alvin's courage and kindness. One early morning, sunlight streamed through the leaves, casting mottled shadows on the ground. Alvin and Elizabeth stood on a hillside covered with blooming flowers, the breeze gently carrying their fragrance. Alvin gazed at the beautiful scene before him, overwhelmed by a surge of emotion. "Elizabeth," he said softly, "would you come back to the palace with me? I hope you can be my friend and advisor." Elizabeth heard his proposal, feeling both joy and some apprehension. She knew that following Alvin to the palace would mean a significant change in her life. She would leave behind the forest she loved dearly and enter a world filled with power struggles and intrigue. Despite this, she felt Alvin's deep affection and trust, and she ultimately decided to accept his proposal. "I will," she said softly, her eyes gleaming with determination. "I will go with you, help you, and support you." Alvin smiled with relief upon hearing Elizabeth's response. He took her hand, feeling her warmth and strength. The two stood together on the hillside, filled with hope and confidence for the future. Elizabeth began to prepare for her departure from the forest, bidding farewell to every plant and animal she had known. She touched the tree bark, feeling their vitality, and told them of her impending departure. The forest animals seemed to sense her emotions, coming forward to bid her farewell. Though it saddened Elizabeth, she knew her future lay in the palace, and her mission was to help Alvin. On the day of her departure, the forest was enveloped in a solemn atmosphere. Elizabeth stood before her cottage, taking one last look at the land she knew so well. Alvin stood beside her, silently supporting her. "We should go," Alvin said softly. Elizabeth took a deep breath and nodded. She knew that following Alvin to the palace would mark a turning point in her fate and a new chapter in her life. With hope for the future, she followed Alvin on the path leading to the palace. Along the way, they crossed vast meadows and scaled towering mountains, eventually arriving at the palace of Elrond. The magnificent palace stood tall against the blue sky, its gardens filled with blooming flowers, presenting a grand sight. However, Elizabeth knew that beneath this beautiful exterior lay many unknown challenges and tests. As they walked into the palace, the people of the court gazed at the unfamiliar witch. Elizabeth felt a strong sense of hostility and suspicion, but did not back down. She stood tall and followed Alvin confidently towards their shared future. In the following days, Elizabeth used her wisdom and kindness to gradually earn the trust of some people. She utilized her magic to help the court solve various problems, advising Alvin and facing the kingdom's internal strife and challenges together. Despite the significant changes in her life, Elizabeth remained passionate about nature and magic. Late at night, she would stand on the palace balcony, gazing at the stars and reminiscing about her days in the forest. She knew that no matter what the future held, she would steadfastly move forward, protecting everything she loved. The bond between Elizabeth and Alvin grew stronger during this time. They faced difficulties together, welcomed challenges, and achieved new heights with each other's support. Elizabeth knew that her choice was the right one, and that her future would be written anew in this vast land. When Elizabeth arrived at the palace of Elrond, she felt a strong sense of hostility. The magnificent palace shimmered under the blue sky, its gardens filled with blooming flowers, appearing extraordinarily grand. However, this beautiful exterior could not hide the internal power struggles and intrigues. Elizabeth's arrival garnered significant attention, with her magical talents and close relationship with the prince making many people uneasy. The moment she stepped into the palace, Elizabeth felt numerous eyes watching her. Everyone in the court seemed to be judging her every move. She walked through intricately carved arches and along corridors lined with luxurious carpets, feeling the pressure from the oil paintings and tapestries adorning the walls. She took a deep breath, trying to appear composed and confident. Catherine, Alvin's childhood friend, was an important figure in the court. She had been close to Alvin since childhood and had always harbored feelings for him. Upon learning that Alvin had brought back a witch and had deep feelings for her, Catherine's jealousy and discontent surged instantly. She could not accept Elizabeth's presence, let alone Alvin's love for her. Filled with anger and jealousy, Catherine began spreading rumors, attempting to isolate Elizabeth in the court. "Have you heard?" she whispered to the noblewomen during a luncheon. "That new witch, I hear her magic isn't just for healing, but also involves many dark and unspeakable practices." The rumors quickly spread throughout the court, making people wary and cold towards Elizabeth. She sensed these changes, but did not retreat. Instead, she worked even harder to prove her worth. She used her magic to help the court solve various problems, gradually earning the trust of some people with her wisdom and kindness. However, Catherine's jealousy did not wane. Realizing that mere rumors would not be enough to undermine Elizabeth, she sought more extreme measures. At this moment, the evil witch Morgana approached her with a tempting proposal. Morgana coveted the throne of Aelrand and had been plotting greater schemes for a long time. She knew that to achieve her ambitions, she had to eliminate Alvin and his powerful allies. When she discovered Catherine's enmity towards Elizabeth, she decided to exploit this to her advantage. "We can join forces," Morgana said to Catherine in a dark corner of the palace, her voice low and enticing. "Eliminate that witch, and Alvin will return to you." Catherine, blinded by jealousy and anger, agreed to help Morgana. Her emotions clouded her judgment, preventing her from seeing Morgana's true intentions. Catherine believed that once Elizabeth was gone, Alvin's love would return to her. Morgana used dark magic to orchestrate a series of seemingly coincidental events, causing the court to grow increasingly suspicious of Elizabeth's motives and magical abilities. One night, Morgana set a trap in the palace. She summoned a massive shadow monster through dark magic, wreaking havoc and blaming Elizabeth for the chaos. When the monster appeared, the court was thrown into panic, with people fleeing in terror. Catherine shouted amidst the chaos, "It's her magic!" She summoned this monster. Elizabeth knew this was Morgana's scheme, but she had to act swiftly to prove her innocence. She concentrated all her magical power and engaged in a fierce battle. Her magical energy shone like silver light, illuminating the darkness and standing in stark contrast to the shadow monster's dark forces. In this battle, Elizabeth demonstrated extraordinary courage and strength. Her spells sparkled like stars in the night sky, each one filled with purity and justice. She not only had to repel the shadow monster, but also protect the innocent members of the court. In the palace courtyard, the flowers looked exceptionally beautiful under the moonlight, but the peaceful scene was disrupted by the ongoing battle. Elizabeth stood in the center of the courtyard, facing the giant shadow monster. Her eyes were resolute and filled with determination, and every magical action she took was powerful. "You won't succeed, Morgana," Elizabeth declared firmly. "I won't let you harm this kingdom." The shadow monster roared and charged at Elizabeth, but she calmly cast a protective barrier, blocking the monster's attack. She then raised her wand high, chanting an ancient spell, and a beam of silver light burst from the tip of her wand, striking the heart of the shadow monster. The monster let out a pained howl, gradually dissipating in the light. After the battle, the courtyard returned to tranquility, but the air was still thick with tension. People gathered around, their eyes filled with awe and gratitude. Although exhausted, Elizabeth stood tall, her gaze unwavering. However, she knew that this was just the beginning. Morgana's power and ambition were far from over, and Catherine's jealousy would not easily fade. To protect Alvin and the kingdom, Elizabeth decided to continue fighting. In the following days, Elizabeth worked even harder to study and practice her magic, becoming more determined with each step. She knew that only by continually improving herself could she gain the upper hand in future battles. Meanwhile, Morgana and Catherine's conspiracies continued to escalate. They plotted new schemes, attempting to use more insidious means to eliminate Elizabeth. The court's attitude towards Elizabeth grew more complex, with some people beginning to support her, while others remained filled with doubt and hostility. Elizabeth was not intimidated by these difficulties. She used her wisdom and courage to continually defuse crises, gradually winning more trust and respect. Her relationship with Alvin also deepened during this time. Together, they faced difficulties, welcomed challenges, and reached new heights with each other's support. At a grand court banquet, Alvin publicly expressed his trust and support for Elizabeth, causing those who doubted her to waver. Although Catherine was filled with jealousy, she also began to realize that her alliance with Morgana might not be as solid and reliable as she had initially thought. "Elizabeth," Alvin said at the banquet, "your courage and wisdom are treasures of this kingdom. No matter how difficult the future may be, we will face it together." Elizabeth felt the sincerity and determination in Alvin's words and smiled, nodding in agreement. She knew that the road ahead would still be full of challenges, but with Alvin's support and trust, she was confident in facing anything. However, Morgana did not abandon her plans. Her magic and schemes continued to simmer in the shadows, seeking new opportunities to destroy Elizabeth and Alvin. She knew that only by completely eliminating these two could she achieve her desire for the throne. Catherine struggled with conflicting emotions. On one hand, she wished to win Alvin's love. On the other hand, she began to realize that her actions were pushing her into a dangerous abyss. Her heart began to waver, unsure whether she should continue collaborating with Morgana. In this complex struggle of power and emotion, Elizabeth used her wisdom and courage to gradually win over the court. Her every move garnered more support for her and Alvin, while gradually weakening Morgana's power. Finally, Elizabeth stood at the center of the court, facing those who had once doubted and opposed her. She spoke with a firm yet gentle voice. "No matter how difficult the road ahead may be, I will stand with Alvin and work for the future of this kingdom." Her words resonated with everyone present. People began to realize that she was not just a powerful witch, but a leader worthy of respect and trust. Through her actions and words, Elizabeth gradually changed people's perceptions of her, laying a solid foundation for her and Alvin's future. At a grand royal banquet, the air was filled with the luxurious scent of perfumes, and the magnificent hall echoed with beautiful music. Long tables were laden with exquisite dishes. Candles flickered, casting a warm glow on the guests' faces and their elaborate attire. Members of the royal family, nobles, and important court figures gathered, enjoying the lavish feast. Elizabeth, dressed in an elegant gown, stood by Alvin's side, smiling and conversing with the guests. However, hidden behind this opulent banquet was a meticulously planned conspiracy. The evil witch, Morgana, had stealthily infiltrated the banquet, prepared to use dark magic to create an incident and frame Elizabeth, destroying her reputation. Just as the banquet reached its peak, the music suddenly turned frantic and discordant, and the candlelight began to flicker erratically. The entire hall fell into an eerie atmosphere. Suddenly, A thick black fog spread from a corner of the hall, quickly enveloping the entire space. Within the fog, black sparks flickered, and the air was filled with the pungent smell of sulfur. Panic ensued, with people fleeing in all directions, their festive chatter replaced by screams of terror and chaotic noise. Alvin immediately stood protectively in front of Elizabeth, trying to shield her from harm. However, Morgana suddenly appeared, her figure menacing in the black fog. She wore a black robe, her face sinister, her eyes gleaming with malevolence. "She's a dangerous witch," Morgana exclaimed loudly, her voice echoing through the hall. "Her magic will destroy us all." Elizabeth realized she had to step forward and prove her innocence. She stood tall, her gaze resolute, channeling all her magical energy, ready for a fierce confrontation. Her wand glowed with silver light, reflecting her inner determination. "You will not succeed, Morgana," Elizabeth declared firmly. "I will not let you harm this kingdom." Morgana sneered, her dark magic flaring like black flames, surging toward Elizabeth. Elizabeth waved her wand, sending a beam of silver light to meet the black flames. The two powerful forces collided in midair, creating a blinding flash and a massive shockwave. The people in the hall were stunned by the force of the collision, retreating in fear, their eyes fixed on the magical duel. Elizabeth's magic shone like silver light in the darkness, contrasting sharply with Morgana's dark magic. Each of her attacks was imbued with purity and justice, while Morgana's magic was filled with evil and destruction. Elizabeth felt her magical energy depleting rapidly, but she did not retreat. She knew this was not just about proving her innocence, but also about protecting Alvin and the entire kingdom. She summoned all her strength, casting her most powerful spells, her silver light flickering like stars throughout the hall, each beam striking directly at Morgana's dark forces. "Morgana, your schemes will not succeed," Elizabeth shouted, her voice resonating through the hall, filled with power and resolve. Morgana's face twisted with anger, increasing the intensity of her dark magic, the black flames growing fiercer, seeming to consume everything. Elizabeth gritted her teeth, focusing all her energy, continuing to fight against Morgana's power. The battle seemed to last forever, with silver and black lights constantly clashing in the hall, each collision accompanied by massive energy waves. Sweat began to bead on Elizabeth's forehead, but her gaze remained firm. She knew she had to win this battle, not just for herself, but for the future of the kingdom. "You cannot defeat me, Morgana," Elizabeth shouted again, her voice filled with unwavering determination and power. In a final, intense clash, Elizabeth seized an opportunity. She concentrated all her magical energy, casting a powerful spell. A brilliant silver light burst from the tip of her wand, striking Morgana directly. Caught off guard, Morgana was hit by the powerful force, her body thrown backward, crashing into the wall. The black fog in the hall began to dissipate, the air clearing once again. People slowly recovered from their fear, looking at Elizabeth with awe and gratitude. Although exhausted, Elizabeth stood tall, her gaze fixed firmly on the fallen Morgana. Morgana struggled to rise, but found herself too weak. Her face twisted with anger and frustration, but she knew she had been defeated. "This isn't over," Morgana hissed through gritted teeth, her voice filled with malice and determination. Elizabeth ignored her, turning to look at Alvin, her eyes filled with warmth and resolve. Alvin stepped forward, gripping her hand tightly, his eyes full of gratitude and love. "You did wonderfully, Elizabeth," Alvin said softly, his voice filled with sincerity and admiration. "You protected all of us." Elizabeth smiled slightly and nodded. She knew this was just the beginning. Morgana's power and ambition were far from vanquished, and Elizabeth realized she needed to become stronger to better protect Alvin and the kingdom. To protect Alvin and the kingdom, Elizabeth decided to leave the palace to seek greater magical power. She knew that only by continually enhancing her abilities could she gain the upper hand in future battles. Before leaving, Elizabeth and Alvin spent their final moments together in the palace garden. The garden was fragrant with blooming flowers, bathed in moonlight, as if blessing their future. "I will return with greater power," Elizabeth whispered, her voice filled with determination and hope. "I will always protect you in this kingdom." Alvin nodded, holding her hand tightly. "I believe in you, Elizabeth," he said, his voice filled with firmness and trust. "No matter how difficult the future may be, we will face it together." Elizabeth gave Alvin a deep, lingering look, then turned and disappeared into the night. The people in the palace gradually calmed down, but they knew this battle was just the beginning. The road ahead was still full of challenges, but with Elizabeth's protection, they were hopeful for the future. Elizabeth left the palace, embarking on a new journey. She crossed vast plains and climbed towering mountains, searching for the legendary greater magical power. Every step she took was filled with determination and courage, knowing that she must become stronger to better protect Alvin and the kingdom. Throughout her journey, Elizabeth faced numerous challenges and difficulties, but she never wavered. Her determination and courage allowed her to continually progress, gradually mastering more powerful magic. She knew that everything she did was to protect the people she loved and her homeland. Elizabeth's journey was filled with adventure and uncertainty, but her heart remained full of hope. She believed that as long as she remained steadfast, she would overcome all difficulties, returning to Alvin with greater power to continue protecting their shared home. In future battles, Elizabeth would face more formidable enemies and harsher challenges. However, her heart was always filled with faith and courage, because she knew that everything she did was to protect everything she loved. No matter how difficult the road ahead, Elizabeth would steadfastly move forward, using her wisdom and strength to safeguard her kingdom and her loved ones. Elizabeth left the palace, her heart heavy with determination and hope. She knew that to protect Alvin and the kingdom of Elrond, she needed greater magical power. Her journey took her to the legendary ancient magic forest, a place where trees stood tall and ancient, their branches reaching for the sky, shrouded in a timeless, otherworldly aura. The deeper she ventured into the forest, the more she felt its profound magic, whispering secrets carried by the wind and the rustling leaves. The forest was dense, filled with towering trees whose gnarled branches intertwined to form a natural canopy that blocked out the sunlight, casting the forest floor in a perpetual twilight. The air was thick with the scent of moss and damp earth, and the sounds of the forest chirping birds, rustling leaves, and distant animal calls created a symphony of nature that both calmed and invigorated Elizabeth. She walked for days, guided by the forest's subtle magic and her own intuition. Each step took her deeper into the heart of the forest, where the air grew cooler and the magic more palpable. The forest seemed to be alive, watching her every move, testing her resolve. She encountered magical creatures, ethereal deer with glowing antlers, small sprites that flitted around her, leaving trails of sparkling light, and ancient, wise owls that watched her with knowing eyes. Elizabeth's journey was not without challenges. She navigated treacherous paths, crossed swift rivers, and braved fierce storms. Yet each obstacle only strengthened her determination. She knew that at the end of her journey awaited the legendary mage, Gulam, a wise and powerful mentor who could teach her the magic she needed to defeat Morgana. After weeks of arduous travel, Elizabeth finally reached the heart of the forest. There, hidden among the ancient trees, stood a castle protected by magical barriers. The castle was ancient, its stone walls covered in ivy and moss, yet it emanated a powerful protective aura. The air around it buzzed with magic, and Elizabeth could feel the strength of the protective wards that surrounded it. Taking a deep breath, she approached the castle gates. As she neared, the wards recognized her purpose and intent, allowing her to pass through. She walked through the gates and into the courtyard, where the air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of a gentle fountain. It was a place of serenity and power, a sanctuary of ancient magic. Elizabeth entered the castle and was greeted by Gulam himself. The mage was tall and imposing, with long silver hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. He wore robes of deep blue, adorned with intricate patterns of silver thread that shimmered in the light. "Welcome, Elizabeth," Gulam said, his voice deep and resonant. "I have been expecting you." Elizabeth bowed respectfully. "Thank you for receiving me, Master Gulam. I seek your guidance and wisdom to become stronger and protect my kingdom." Gulam nodded, a faint smile on his lips. "I know of your quest and the dangers you face. To defeat Morgana, you must learn to harness not only your magical power, but also the power within yourself. Come, let us begin." Under Gulam's guidance, Elizabeth began an intense period of training. The castle's vast halls and courtyards became her training ground, where she practiced spells and honed her magical abilities. Gulam taught her ancient incantations and powerful spells, guiding her through the intricate weavings of magic that connected the natural world with the cosmos. "You must learn to control the power within you," Gulam instructed. "Only then can you command the forces of nature and the universe." Days turned into weeks as Elizabeth immersed herself in her training. She learned to communicate with the elements, summoning fire with a flick of her wrist, bending water to her will, commanding the wind to obey her, and drawing strength from the earth beneath her feet. Each lesson brought her closer to mastering the ancient magic that Gulam taught. One evening, Gulam led Elizabeth to the highest tower of the castle. From there, they could see the entire forest, a sea of green stretching out to the horizon, bathed in the golden light of the setting sun. "Elizabeth," Gulam said, his voice soft yet firm, "to truly understand the power of magic, you must also understand the intentions behind it. Morgana seeks to resurrect an ancient dragon lord using dark magic, a being of immense power that can bring ruin to Aelrand. To stop her, you must be unwavering in your resolve and pure in your intentions." Elizabeth's heart pounded as she listened. She had sensed Morgana's dark ambitions, but the revelation of the Dragon Lord's resurrection added a new layer of urgency to her mission. "I understand, Master Gulam," Elizabeth replied, her voice steady. "I will do whatever it takes to protect my kingdom and stop Morgana." Gulam placed a hand on her shoulder, his gaze piercing and kind. "I believe in you, Elizabeth. Your strength lies not only in your magic, but in your heart. Remember this as you face the challenges ahead." Under Gulam's tutelage, Elizabeth delved deeper into the ancient arts. She studied the complex runes and sigils that formed the basis of powerful spells, learned to channel her energy through intricate rituals, and practiced the art of enchantment. Gulam's teachings were rigorous and demanding, pushing Elizabeth to her limits, but she welcomed each challenge with determination and grace. One particularly challenging lesson involved communing with the spirits of the forest. Gulam led Elizabeth to a sacred grove where ancient trees formed a natural circle, their branches intertwining to create a canopy that shimmered with magical energy. In the center of the grove stood a stone altar, covered in runes that glowed faintly in the twilight. "Place your hands on the altar and close your eyes," Gulam instructed. "Open your mind and heart to the spirits of the forest. They will guide you." Elizabeth did as she was told, feeling the cool stone under her palms and the hum of magic in the air. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath, focusing on the sensations around her. Gradually, she felt a connection forming, a gentle tug on her consciousness as the spirits reached out to her. Images and emotions flooded her mind, visions of the forest's history, its joys and sorrows, its struggles and triumphs. She saw the birth of the ancient trees, the rise and fall of civilizations, and the constant, unwavering presence of magic that bound everything together. The spirits spoke to her in whispers, their voices like the rustling of leaves, filling her with wisdom and strength. When she finally opened her eyes, Elizabeth felt a profound sense of connection to the forest and its magic. She understood now that her journey was not just about gaining power, but about understanding and respecting the forces she sought to command. "Excellent," Gulam said, a note of pride in his voice. "You have done well, Elizabeth. Remember, true power comes from harmony with the world around you." As weeks turned into months, Elizabeth continued to grow stronger. She mastered spells of protection and healing, learned to summon and banish powerful entities, and honed her skills in combat magic. Her confidence grew, and with it, her determination to face Morgana and protect Elrond. One day, as Elizabeth practiced a particularly complex spell, Gulam approached her with a serious expression. "Elizabeth, it is time you learned the final piece of ancient magic, the spell that can bind even the most powerful of beings. It is a dangerous and demanding spell, but I believe you are ready." Elizabeth nodded, her eyes filled with resolve. "I am ready, Master Gulam." "Teach me." Gulam led her to a secluded chamber deep within the castle. The walls were covered in ancient runes, and the air was thick with magical energy. In the center of the room was a large, intricately carved circle, its symbols glowing faintly. "This is the binding circle," Gulam explained. "It is a powerful tool that can bind any being, no matter how strong. But to use it, you must channel all your strength and willpower. The slightest hesitation can lead to failure." Elizabeth stepped into the circle, feeling its energy resonate with her own. She took a deep breath and began to chant the incantation Gulam had taught her. The runes on the floor glowed brighter, and a shimmering barrier formed around her. She could feel the magic coursing through her veins, a powerful and exhilarating sensation. As she continued the incantation, the air around her crackled with energy. The binding circle pulsed with light, and Elizabeth felt herself merging with its power. She focused all her thoughts on the spell, her mind clear and unwavering. With a final powerful chant, Elizabeth completed the spell. The binding circle glowed with an intense light before gradually fading. She stood in the center, panting but triumphant, feeling the full extent of the ancient magic she had harnessed. Gulam nodded in approval. "You have done it, Elizabeth. You are now ready to face Morgana and whatever challenges lie ahead. Remember, the strength you have gained comes not only from your magic, but from your heart and spirit. Use it wisely." Elizabeth felt a surge of confidence and gratitude. She knew that with Gulam's teachings and her newfound power, she could face Morgana and protect Elrond. She thanked Gulam deeply, vowing to honor his teachings and use her power for the greater good. As she prepared to leave the castle, Gulam gave her a final piece of advice. "Elizabeth, your journey does not end here. It is only beginning. The path ahead will be fraught with danger and uncertainty. But remember that you carry the strength and wisdom of the ancient magic within you. Trust in yourself and your abilities, and you will prevail." With these words echoing in her heart, Elizabeth left the castle, ready to face the challenges ahead. The forest seemed to part for her as she walked, the trees whispering their encouragement and support. She felt a profound sense of purpose and determination, knowing that she was not alone in her quest. As she ventured out of the forest and back into the world, Elizabeth carried with her the power of the ancient magic and the wisdom of her mentor. She knew that the battle against Morgana would be fierce, but she was ready. With her heart and spirit aligned with the forces of nature and the cosmos, she felt unstoppable. Elizabeth's journey through the ancient magic forest and her training with Gulam had transformed her. She had become not only a powerful witch, but a guardian of the natural world, a protector of the balance between light and dark. Her resolve was unshakable, her spirit indomitable. As she continued her journey, Elizabeth felt the weight of her responsibility, but also the strength of her purpose. She was determined to face Morgana, to protect Alvin and the kingdom, and to ensure that the ancient magic she had learned would be used for good. The path ahead was challenging, but Elizabeth was ready to meet it with courage and unwavering determination. Thus, with the wisdom of the ancients and the strength of her own heart, Elizabeth set forth, prepared to confront the darkness and restore light to Elran. When Elizabeth felt that she was ready, she made the decision to return to the palace, determined to face Morgana and rescue Alvin. The journey back was fraught with anticipation and anxiety, the weight of her mission pressing heavily upon her shoulders. The forest seemed to sense her urgency, parting silently as she passed, the trees whispering their farewells and lending her their strength. As she approached the palace, Elizabeth's heart pounded with a mix of fear and resolve. The grand edifice loomed before her, its towering spires piercing the sky, casting long shadows over the land. The once majestic palace now seemed shrouded in a foreboding aura, a testament to Morgana's dark influence. Elizabeth steeled herself, drawing upon the ancient magic she had learned from Gulam, and stepped through the gates. The atmosphere inside the palace was tense and oppressive. The halls, once filled with the bustle of courtiers and the warmth of candlelight, were now dark and silent, echoing with an eerie stillness. Elizabeth moved swiftly but cautiously, her senses heightened, aware of the danger that lurked around every corner. As she made her way deeper into the palace, she encountered signs of Morgana's presence everywhere. The walls were adorned with sinister runes that pulsed with dark energy, and shadows seemed to writhe and shift unnaturally. Elizabeth's determination only grew stronger. She knew she had to put an end to Morgana's reign of terror. Finally, Elizabeth reached the grand throne room, its vast expanse dimly lit by the flickering light of enchanted torches. At the far end of the room, Morgana stood, her figure cloaked in darkness, her eyes gleaming with malevolence. Alvin was there too, bound by magical chains, his expression one of defiance and worry. "You've finally returned," Morgana said with a cold smile, her voice dripping with mockery. "But you're too late." Elizabeth felt a surge of anger and fear, but she quickly suppressed it, focusing on the task at hand. She knew that she had no time to waste. Drawing upon the deep reservoir of magic within her, she stepped forward, her presence radiating with the power she had gained during her training. "Morgana, this ends now," Elizabeth declared, her voice steady and filled with resolve. Morgana laughed, a harsh, grating sound that echoed through the throne room. "Do you really think you can stop me? Your power is nothing compared to mine. I will resurrect the ancient dragon lord, and Alrand will be mine." With a swift motion, Morgana unleashed a torrent of dark magic, aiming directly at Elizabeth. The air crackled with malevolent energy, the room trembling under the force of her attack. Elizabeth raised her wand, conjuring a shimmering shield of silver light. The dark magic collided with her barrier, sending sparks flying in all directions. The impact of the clash sent shockwaves through the room, the sheer power of their magic causing the walls to shake and the floor to crack. Elizabeth stood her ground, her eyes locked on Morgana's, her determination unwavering. She knew that this battle would be her greatest challenge, but she was prepared to do whatever it took to protect Alvin and the kingdom. "Your evil will not prevail, Morgana," Elizabeth shouted, her voice ringing with conviction. "I will stop you, even if it costs me my life." Drawing upon the ancient spells she had learned, Elizabeth began to chant, her voice resonating with a powerful, otherworldly cadence. Her words wove together a complex web of magic, calling upon the forces of nature and the cosmos. Silver light enveloped her, growing brighter and more intense with each passing moment. Morgana's eyes narrowed, sensing the immense power Elizabeth was summoning. She responded with a ferocious assault, her dark magic manifesting as tendrils of shadow that lashed out towards Elizabeth. The throne room became a battleground of light and darkness, the two forces clashing with explosive intensity. Despite the overwhelming power of Morgana's attacks, Elizabeth held firm. She channeled her magic with precision and control, deflecting the dark tendrils and countering with beams of pure radiant light. The air was thick with the hum of magic, the very fabric of reality seeming to warp and bend under the strain of their confrontation. As the battle raged on, Elizabeth felt her strength waning. The sheer effort of maintaining her magical defenses and launching counterattacks was taking its toll. She knew that she couldn't hold out much longer, but she also knew that she had to give everything she had to protect Alvin and the kingdom. With a final, desperate effort, Elizabeth summoned the ancient guardian spell that Gulam had taught her. She raised her wand high, and a brilliant burst of silver light erupted from its tip, enveloping the entire throne room. The light coalesced into a barrier of pure energy, pushing back Morgana's dark magic and encasing the witch in a prison of shimmering light. Morgana screamed in rage and frustration, her dark power thrashing against the confines of the barrier. But Elizabeth's spell held firm, its ancient magic impenetrable. The room was bathed in an ethereal glow, the darkness banished by the radiant light of the guardian spell. Elizabeth felt her life force draining away, the immense power of the spell consuming her very essence. She turned to Alvin, who was struggling against his bonds, his face etched with horror and despair. "Alvin, goodbye," Elizabeth whispered, her voice barely audible. Alvin's eyes widened with anguish. "No, Elizabeth," he shouted, his voice breaking. "Don't leave me." Elizabeth's vision began to blur, the edges of her consciousness fading. She could feel the warmth leaving her body, replaced by an icy coldness. But despite the encroaching darkness, she felt a profound sense of peace. She had done what she needed to do. She had protected Alvin and the kingdom. As the last of her strength ebbed away, Elizabeth collapsed to the floor, her body growing cold and lifeless. Alvin broke free from his bonds and rushed to her side, gathering her in his arms. He held her tightly, his tears falling on her pale, lifeless face. "Elizabeth, please," Alvin sobbed, his voice choked with grief. "Don't leave me." But it was too late. Elizabeth's sacrifice had saved the kingdom, but at the cost of her own life. The throne room was silent, the only sound the soft sobs of Alvin as he cradled her in his arms. The radiant light of the guardian spell began to fade, the barrier around Morgana dissolving into nothingness. The dark witch lay unconscious, her power broken, her plans thwarted. The kingdom of Elrond was safe, but the price had been steep. Alvin's heart was shattered, the weight of his loss almost too much to bear. He held Elizabeth close, her lifeless form a stark reminder of the cost of their victory. The kingdom would remember her as a hero, but for Alvin, the pain of her absence would be a wound that never healed. As dawn broke over the palace, the first light of day streaming through the shattered windows, Alvin remained by Elizabeth's side, his heart heavy with sorrow. The kingdom might be saved, but the love of his life was gone, her sacrifice a testament to her strength and courage. In the quiet aftermath of the battle, the people of Elrond would come to understand the true extent of Elizabeth's heroism. Her name would be spoken with reverence, her story passed down through generations as a symbol of selfless bravery. She had given everything to protect those she loved, and in doing so had become a legend. For Alvin, the journey ahead would be one of healing and remembrance. He would carry Elizabeth's memory with him, her spirit a guiding light in the dark times to come. The kingdom might have lost a great witch, but her legacy would endure, a beacon of hope and courage for all who followed. Thus, the tale of Elizabeth's sacrifice became a part of Elrond's history, a story of love, loss, and the unbreakable bond between two hearts. And as the kingdom rebuilt and flourished, Elizabeth's spirit watched over them, a guardian in the shadows, her love and sacrifice never forgotten. Elizabeth's sacrifice left Alvin heartbroken, but it also brought peace to the kingdom. The once darkened halls of the palace slowly filled with light and hope as the news of Morgana's defeat spread throughout Elrond. The people rejoiced, but their joy was tinged with sorrow, for they knew that their salvation had come at a great cost. In the weeks that followed, Alvin, though consumed by grief, dedicated himself to honoring Elizabeth's memory. He decided to create a place within the palace grounds that would serve as a living tribute to her bravery and love. With great care, he oversaw the construction of a magnificent garden, a sanctuary of beauty and tranquility, which he named Elizabeth's Garden. The garden was a marvel of design and nature, a testament to Elizabeth's connection with the natural world. Ancient oaks and delicate willows provided shade and solace, their leaves whispering softly in the breeze. Pathways lined with vibrant flowers of every color wound through the garden, leading visitors on a journey of peace and reflection. Fountains of crystal clear water bubbled gently, their melodious sounds adding to the serene atmosphere. At the center of the garden stood a grand marble statue of Elizabeth, her likeness captured in a moment of serene grace. She held her wand aloft, its tip pointing towards the heavens, and her face bore an expression of calm determination. The statue was surrounded by a reflecting pool, its surface shimmering like liquid silver, reflecting the statue and the sky above. The people of Aelrand soon began to visit Elizabeth's garden, drawn by its beauty and the sense of peace it offered. They left flowers and offerings at the base of her statue, whispered prayers of gratitude, and told their children stories of the brave witch who had saved their kingdom. The garden became a place of pilgrimage, a sacred space where the memory of Elizabeth was cherished and kept alive. Legends began to form around Elizabeth's garden. It was said that on quiet nights, when the moon was full and the stars were bright, Elizabeth's spirit would appear, wandering through the garden she loved so dearly. Some claimed to have seen her, a shimmering figure of light, moving gracefully among the flowers, her presence bringing a sense of comfort and protection. Despite losing Elizabeth, Alvin carried on with her memory in his heart. He ascended to the throne and became a great king, ruling Aelrand with wisdom and courage. His reign was marked by prosperity and peace, as he implemented policies that reflected Elizabeth's values of kindness and justice. He often sought guidance from her memory, making decisions that he believed would honor her sacrifice and the love they shared. In his private moments, Alvin would retreat to Elizabeth's garden. He found solace among the flowers and trees, the gentle sounds of nature providing a balm for his wounded heart. He would sit by the reflecting pool, gazing at the statue of Elizabeth, and speak to her as if she were still by his side. "My love," he would whisper, "I miss you every day. Your sacrifice gave me the strength to lead our people, and I hope I can make you proud." As he looked up at the night sky, Alvin felt a connection that transcended the boundaries of life and death. The stars seemed to shine more brightly, and the moon's gentle glow reminded him of Elizabeth's radiant spirit. He believed that she was watching over him, guiding him with her love and wisdom. Elizabeth's story spread throughout Aelrand, becoming an eternal legend. Her tale of love and sacrifice, courage and wisdom, inspired countless generations. Bards composed songs about her, and poets wrote verses celebrating her heroism. In the schools and universities, scholars taught about the brave witch who had given everything to protect her kingdom. The children of Aelrand grew up hearing stories of Elizabeth's bravery. They played games pretending to be the heroic witch, casting imaginary spells to protect their friends from evil. Her name became synonymous with selflessness and courage, a beacon of hope in times of darkness. As the years passed, Elizabeth's legacy only grew stronger. Her garden flourished, the flowers blooming in vibrant colors, and the trees standing tall and proud. It became a symbol of the resilience and beauty of Aelrand, a reminder that even in the darkest times, light and love could prevail. The kingdom itself thrived under Alvin's rule. Inspired by Elizabeth's sacrifice, the people of Aelrand worked together to build a society based on compassion and justice. They took pride in their history and the hero who had given her life for their future. Festivals were held in her honor, with parades, dances, and ceremonies celebrating her life and the peace she had secured. Alvin's reign was long and prosperous, marked by the wisdom he had gained from his love for Elizabeth. He led with a gentle hand and a strong heart, always striving to be the kind of leader Elizabeth would have been proud of. He promoted education, justice, and equality, ensuring that all his subjects had the opportunity to thrive. Even as he grew older, Alvin never ceased to visit Elizabeth's garden. His steps might have slowed, and his hair turned silver, but his love for her remained as strong as ever. He would sit by the reflecting pool, sharing his thoughts and dreams with the statue of his beloved, feeling her presence in the gentle rustling of the leaves and the soft murmur of the water. One particularly clear night, as Alvin gazed up at the starry sky, he felt a profound sense of peace. He knew that his time was nearing its end, but he took comfort in the belief that he would soon be reunited with Elizabeth. He closed his eyes, imagining her radiant smile and the warmth of her embrace. The next morning, the people of Aelrand found their beloved king in Elizabeth's garden, peacefully resting by the reflecting pool, his face serene and content. The news of his passing spread quickly, and the entire kingdom mourned the loss of the great king who had led them with such wisdom and compassion. A grand ceremony was held in Elizabeth's garden to honor Alvin's memory. The people gathered to pay their respects, their hearts heavy with grief, but also filled with gratitude for the love and dedication he had shown them. They laid flowers around the statue of Elizabeth, knowing that the two were now together once more. As the years turned into centuries, the legend of Elizabeth and Alvin continued to inspire the people of Aelrand. Their story became a symbol of true love and sacrifice, a reminder that even in the face of great adversity, the power of love and courage could overcome all obstacles. Elizabeth's garden remained a place of pilgrimage, a sacred space where the memory of the brave witch and the wise king was kept alive. Visitors from far and wide came to experience the tranquility and magic of the garden, to leave offerings and say prayers, and to draw strength from the enduring legacy of Elizabeth and Alvin. In the heart of Aelrand, where magic and nature intertwined, Elizabeth's spirit continued to watch over the kingdom. Her love and sacrifice had not only saved Aelrand, but had also left an indelible mark on its history and people. Her soul, now one with the garden, brought eternal peace and protection to the land she had given everything to defend. The story of Elizabeth and Alvin was passed down through the generations, each retelling a testament to their extraordinary lives. It was a story of love that transcended death, of sacrifice that brought lasting peace, and of courage that inspired an entire kingdom. And so, in the magical land of Aelrand, Elizabeth's spirit lived on, an eternal guardian of the realm she had saved and the people she had loved.